edition presented by Coors Light. I am here with What's going on, Kraken fans? Everett Fitzhugh here for our Kraken Coors and the Cup live stream presented by our friends over at Coors Light ahead of tonight's Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final between Montreal and Tampa Bay. I am here at the Kraken team store in Chandler's Cove, and the expansion draft is coming up. The Kraken opening night, the season is coming up, so plenty of time to still get down here to Chandler's Cove and pick up some pretty fresh Kraken swag. I actually had to buy myself a new polo today. I saw Ron Francis wearing this the other day at the opening press conference, and I said, I need that in my life. So we've got a whole packed hour for you today. We'll be joined by Seattle Kraken beat writer Ryan S. Clark from The Athletic. He's going to break down these playoffs so far, give us a little bit of what we can expect coming up the rest of this series between Tampa and Montreal. We'll also hear from Kevin Tyson, who is an author and local Seattle sports historian. I absolutely love talking to Kevin. He is the foremost expert when it comes to the Stanley Cup, the Seattle Metropolitans. Hopefully we'll have another cup in our future as well. We're also going to have a couple of special guests and a little surprise for you coming up later on in the show. So please stay tuned for that. It's going to be a fun hour. Let's dive right in and welcome in Ryan S. Clark, the Kraken beat writer for The Athletic. Ryan, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Everett, thanks for having me. How's everything on your end?
Everything's going well, man, and it is the most wonderful time of the year. No, I am not talking about Christmas. I, of course, am talking about the Stanley Cup Final. You have a team who a lot of people expected to win the Cup against a team who a lot of people didn't think should even made the playoffs. So a lot of great storylines in this series. We'll get to that here in a second, but I want to get your impressions on these playoffs up to this point.
It's interesting to kind of see how it's all worked because, like everybody, you look at how did these teams get here. So let's look at the 4 conference finals. With Vegas, you saw a team that we speak so much about the expansion draft, but it's been the moves the Golden Knights have made since. Namely, they were able to get up the cash and the free cap space to go make a run at Alex Pietrangelo to strengthen their team. Then you look at what the Montreal Canadiens have done. It's been a team that, yes, they've started with guys like Carey Price and eventually Brendan Gallagher, and now this new core of players like Lehkonen, Caulfield, Suzuki, Romanoff, and the like, but they've been able to add pieces. You look at the Lightning, and they've kind of become the example that teams are trying to follow, where you want to draft and develop from within, maybe not exactly always try to find 5 cornerstone players, because finding 2 or 3 is hard enough, and they found 5, but also you're able to find the success in later rounds, whereas if you look at a team like the New York Islanders, that's been an organization that has found ways to not only build from within, but they've been able to find strength and value in certain areas. When you look at players like Scott Mayfield and Pulak and Pelech, and then not only that, but when they've gone into free agency to get players like a Jordan Eberle or Semyon Varlamov, it's been moves that have worked out for them.
There's so much that's happening and so many great storylines in this series. And going back to game one, it reminded me a little bit of that first Montreal Vegas game in which Carey Price kept Montreal in that game. And I feel like even though it was a 5-1 game one win for Tampa, it could have been a lot worse if not for the play of Carey Price. Defensively, Montreal may have some holes they need to fill. But looking at game one, was Tampa Bay just that much better than Montreal?
It's a couple things. The first is there's nothing anyone can discount about the Lightning's talent, but it also comes back to this, and it sounds simple enough. It is, how do you control the net front? When you look at how Montreal has had success throughout this postseason, it has been because they've been active at the net front, either getting goals from those positions or working to defend goals from those positions, to where if you're going to get a shot on Carey Price, it's going to come from a distance to where he has time to react to it. Whereas if what you saw in game one was this, like, yes, you were seeing the Lightning get opportunities, but they were really able to control the net front. And so if you're the Canadiens, that's what you're looking to do. If you're Dominic Ducharme and his staff, is make those adjustments. But the thing is this, everybody looks at that scoreline and people have asked, is it over after one game? But here's the thing. One, the Canadiens have showed that they really can't be discounted in any series. And two, they played skilled teams in Montreal, Winnipeg, and the Vegas Golden Knights, and have made adjustments to the point of either coming back in series or sweeping series. Now, granted, Tampa's different, but if you're looking for a precedent, it's been, at least there's the consistency of facing skilled teams.
Ryan S. Clark, Kraken beat writer for The Athletic, joining us here on Kraken Coors and the Cup, presented by Coors Light. Ryan, how much do you think that the crowd is going to play in this series? You've got 18,000 fans allowed in Tampa. Up in Montreal, they're talking about maybe petitioning the government to allow half capacity. Do you think that crowd down there in Tampa could play a factor in this series?
All you need to know about fans in Florida are this. It's the kind of state that, where for football, they cheer for men who throw a flaming spear into the ground. They sing, "We are the boys of old Florida" in the fourth quarter, and a team comes running out of smoke. And that's just college football. With the Lightning, the experience there is this. Fans are loud. They're passionate. Like, when they score a goal and you see that lightning coil go off, like, it is one of those things where you're like, yo, that's pretty dope, but man, I don't want that coming near me. Whereas if you look at Montreal, all that needs to be said is this. Yes, we talk about the tradition, and those are all valid points. But when you think about the scenes after that win that sent them to the Cup final, like, it's the kind of thing that you would expect to see if they won it, not if they got there, but if they won it. And so, look, so much has been said about the pandemic and the impact that's had, and people appreciating these things that may have been taken for granted. But to get the crowd in both of those arenas, like, it is going to be something that definitely heightens the atmosphere. Because, look, we saw what happened at the final game of the Coliseum with the Islanders, where instead of it just being another game, it felt like something much greater.
We mentioned the storylines, potentially the first Cup for Montreal and the entire nation of Canada as a whole since '93. Back-to-back Cups potentially for Tampa, continuing to grow the game in a non-traditional hockey market, as they say. A third Cup in a row for Pat Maroon, who potentially could, with St. Louis, with his first last year with Tampa, obviously all of the COVID restrictions and being able to battle through that season. This has to be one of the more exciting, talked about Stanley Cup finals that we've had in quite some time.
It's interesting because people looked at the bubble last year and you kind of wondered how the excitement or the emotion would sort of carry over in this environment that felt so alien by comparison. And not that the NHL is back to what we're normally seeing, but what you are seeing is this conversation about not only fans, but like what it could all mean. Because, like, if you're the Montreal Canadiens and you win this, yes, there's the conversation about what it means for Canada as a whole. But when you think about what the Canadiens are doing as an organization, to find this kind of success early with that core, it's not only going to heighten expectations, but if you're them, that's an interesting thing that you can use in free agency to say, come play here. We're building something. And we've seen teams do that. It's why Tampa's in the situation it's in. Whereas if you look at Tampa, and it's strange because we look so often at like what makes for a dynasty, and it seems like winning consecutive cups in this NHL has been a difficult thing. But for the Lightning to think about like where they've come from is the team that once got ousted in the first round by the Blue Jackets, to suddenly they could win 2 cups in a row. Mm-hmm. It's intriguing, but what makes it even more intriguing is this is a team that the minute the season ends, they are going to be in some serious cap issues. Right now, Cap Friendly projects them to be over the cap. And so, look, if you're them, it's not that necessarily this is this last ride. It certainly isn't. But it only becomes that much harder when you have to balance the cap and become compliant. And they're going to lose some good players.
You mentioned, this being potential back-to-back cups for Tampa. If I'm not mistaken, in my lifetime, only Pittsburgh a few years ago in Detroit in the late 90s have repeated as cup champions. So again, not an easy thing to do, but definitely one that I think the fans in Tampa would love. I want to come a little bit closer to home here, and I want to look forward and preview the excitement of the Stanley Cup playoffs. A lot of people will say that, there's nothing like playoff hockey. And for people here in Seattle, Ryan, you've covered the NHL, you've been in playoff atmospheres, you've seen this firsthand. Do fans even comprehend what potentially is about to come their way in hopefully 8-10 months' time when the Kraken begin their quest for a first Stanley Cup?
You could say that just because, when you look at this city, it's a city that it supports things like fiercely, whether it's the Mariners, the Sounders, the Storm, the Seahawks, Husky football and men's basketball, Cougar football and men's basketball. Like, there is a support element that exists in this city. And if you want to expand it to the state, yes, Wazoo as well as Gonzaga. But the thing about the playoffs is this, when you see it in the regular season, there are places that they will sell out. And yes, there are people who get into it. But when there's a playoff crowd, like the things that were small in a regular season game, people just kind of go, oh, okay, cool, suddenly become like a big thing. And if it's something that goes well against your team, if it's something that goes against your team, you think it's a conspiracy. You think it's something that works in favor of your team. You think that it's luck and it's the greatest thing ever. But like, not only that, but like, it's seeing how a community really gets into it. So being in Denver was the kind of place where, look, the NFL reigns supreme. The Avalanche have a presence. But when the Avalanche are in the playoffs, they go to Larimer Square, and you see the banners of all the different sweater numbers from Avalanche players. And Denver gets loud, like loud to the point where people say it's reminiscent of 96, if not louder.
Wow.
But on the flip side of that, that same postseason when the Avalanche beat the Calgary Flames fans after winning game 1 went from this sort of energetic to, when the Avalanche scored a goal, there was a fan who took off their Flames sweater, threw it onto the ice, and people started gradually leaving the Saddle Dome.
It's amazing what can happen in hockey. I absolutely love it. Ryan, we've got about a minute and a half left here. I want to quickly get your thoughts. Last week, probably the biggest of announcements, the most anticipated of announcements, Dave Haxtell named Kraken head coach. Your thoughts on the hire and what he brings to this organization?
Well, it was definitely a hire that came out of nowhere because there were so many other names that have been floated, and Dave Haxtell was one that really kind of came at the last minute. It's been interesting to hear people because there's a little bit of a mixed feeling. On one hand, you have someone who won in 3 full seasons in Philadelphia, never had a record below 500, but then there are these questions about, okay, but could he learn from what happened in Philadelphia? And when you talk to Dave Haxtell, he talked about that, and he said, look, the experience in Philadelphia, while he had people around him, it's one thing to have people talk to you about it. It's another to learn from it. And he said that's what made his experience with the Maple Leafs so valuable, was he could see what it was like having been in that chair from a distance, and it's sort of a learning lesson. And now you're about to see what was learned and how it could manifest with the Kraken here in a couple months.
Ryan S. Clark from The Athletic, Kraken beat writer, about to become very busy. Do not expect much sleep in his future over the next, we'll call it 10 to 12 months. Ryan, as always, man, thank you so much for your time. And we cannot wait to continue to read your fantastic coverage on the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Ryan S. Clark from The Athletic. And we wrapped up that segment by talking about brand new Seattle Kraken head coach Dave Haxtell. Came in town last week and was introduced to the media as well as the community here in Seattle. Let's go behind the scenes and take a little look at what that looked like.
I'm just going to take a quick walk through here, okay? I'll flip you around. Here we go. See, that's going to be the setting right there. Pretty cool spot, huh?
like it. It's really pretty.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Now just making it challenging for you up there. That's not in the job description, is it, you guys?
Without further ado, I would like to introduce the first ever head coach of the Seattle Kraken, Dave Hackstone.
Wow, that's quite an awesome introduction. And I can say this is a dream that has come true.
I want to just kind of say, today we made a big decision with our organization. We hired our first ever head coach. I was going to do a toast, but then I saw Patrick sitting here with a North Dakota hat on. So I was going to ask Patrick to come on out and we'll toast it.
Many great years in North Dakota, and here's to many great years in Seattle.
Cheers.
Absolutely love watching that video and had the opportunity to talk to Dave a little bit at the press conference last week, and he is excited. You read a lot of stuff on Twitter. Folks are saying, oh, he's a very serious guy, but you could not pry that smile off his face last week. So very excited to see what he has in store for this Seattle Kraken team. Made the playoffs 2 of his first 3 years in Philadelphia. So I think that's a pretty good omen of what we can expect here in Seattle. Want to jump into our next guest, a guy that I've had the privilege of talking to on a couple of occasions. And I tell you what, one of the more fascinating people here in the city of Seattle. He is an author. He is a Seattle sports historian and expert on the Metropolitans, the first American team to win the Stanley Cup. Let's bring in Kevin Tyson, who authored the book When It Mattered Most. Kevin, man, great to see you again. How's it going?
Great to see you too. It's going really well.
That's awesome. And we're right in the thick of these Stanley Cup playoffs. Game 2 of the final goes tonight against Montreal. And as the Seattle Metropolitans beat Montreal to claim that first cup. We're going to get to that here in a second, but just the history of the Metropolitans. You are that historian, that expert. Just give us your view on that team and why you've taken such an interest in that old school Seattle Metropolitans era.
Yeah, I was a minor league baseball player and a baseball coach at the UW, and I was asked to help celebrate the centennial and didn't even know the Metropolitans existed. And so I jumped in with both feet. I thought it was one of the coolest stories that I'd heard, that we're the first American team to win the Stanley Cup. And the deeper I got into this team, it's just, from a ability to compete and a championship, squad, it was magic and captivated me.
So let's go into the place that the Seattle Metropolitans have in the Seattle sports landscape. You've got, championships here in Seattle with the Seahawks, but a lot of people may not realize that it was that first American team to win the Cup. What was that landscape like back in 1917 when Seattle was at the top of the hockey world?
Yeah, the Metropolitans are the taproot of our sports community, right? They're the absolute central foundational stone. And Seattle's this town, right? In 1900, there's 80,000 people. It's an outpost, just there's no one here but trees, right? And by 1915, it's 330,000 people. There's some really neat articles around that time of, civic leaders extolling the community to get together to make Seattle the best West Coast city, right? And you have Husky football has really taken root at that point too. And it's the height of the Gildobie era, and the Huskies haven't lost since 1908, right? And they have 0 national championships to show for it, right? It's just the West was disregarded. It was inferior in everybody's eyes. And then the Metropolitans come along, and it's the first time that Seattle gets to show its identity to the nation. And it's the first time that we actually get to compete on a sheet of ice, right? Or a field, a competitive landscape to actually show what we can do. And it was magic. They really they captivated the city, right? The very first game sold out, mostly because people didn't understand hockey. They didn't understand anything about professional sports. And it was kind of a intriguing, thing to go and watch. Right. And then by the time that the Stanley Cup final happens in 1917, right, it's a 2,500 seat arena. They pack 3,500 people into it. You have people up on top of little kids up on top of the roof, looking through skylights, people over the doors, looking through the transoms. It absolutely captivated this community.
Seattle sports historian, author Kevin Tyson joining us here on Kraken Coors and the Cup leading up to Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final here in about 45 minutes time. The Lightning and the Canadiens in Game 2. Lightning have that 1-0 series lead. Kevin, I always love going back into the history of sports, looking at the mergers in the old leagues that have all come together. The Seattle Metropolitans weren't always in the NHL. You had the NHA, you had the PCHL, you had a lot of leagues that came together. What was that process like, and how do the Metropolitans become members of the National Hockey League?
So you have the PCHA, which is on the West Coast, and you have the NHA on the East Coast. And the NHA, beginning in 1910, the winner of the NHA is the Stanley Cup champion, right? And so it's the big teams on the East. It's Montreal, it's Ottawa, it's Toronto. There's actually 2 teams in Montreal, and the PCHA starts the next year, and it's the Patricks, right? It's Lester Patrick and Frank Patrick, and obviously their family is arguably the biggest dynasty in hockey still, right? And so they start this league out west, and they have a lot of money, they have a lot of relationships with some of the top players, and they go out and they poach the best players from the East, bring them to the West, and immediately make the West Coast League a championship league. And then there's a huge negotiation that goes on. And beginning in 1915, the winner of the PCHA and the winner of the NHA play for the Stanley Cup. You can think of it like the American National League in baseball, right? So it was actually called the World Series back then. And, and it was a huge event, right? And when I first started the research, I wasn't sure like how big of a national story it was. And like the New York Times covered it when the Metropolitans won. It was covered in the LA Times. Like, every major newspaper nationally covered the Metropolitans winning. And the PCHA and the NHA continue to compete for the Cup until 1926. And actually, the NHA turns into the NHL in 1917. What happens is the owners don't like the Toronto owner, right? And so they go into a room, they disband the NHA, they walk into the next room. The 3 owners, with the exception of Toronto owner, walk into the next room, sign a charter that's verbally verbatim, with the exception that it's the National Hockey League rather than the National Hockey Association. And they get their buddy that they like to own the new Toronto team. And so that's the transformation between the NHA and the NHL. And like the Metropolitans beat the NHA champion Montreal Canadiens in 1917. They faced the NHL champion Montreal Canadiens in 1919. Exact same team, exact same owner, exact same coaches, right? And so it's kind of a neat little piece of history how that went down.
Hopefully the Seattle Kraken will be playing for a Stanley Cup in the next near future, hopefully sooner rather than later. And it's fascinating to see just how the Stanley Cup has gone from an amateur challenge cup to, what's heralded by many as the holy grail of sports trophies. I mean, that the Stanley Cup has quite the history. And it's been through a lot of pools, a lot of bars, a lot of all that stuff. And just to see where all of that history is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one other fun story, right, is 1914 was the first year that the negotiation happened. And the Patricks and the owners of the NHA decided that the winner would get the Stanley Cup. And so the series takes place, and it's I can't remember the NHA team. It's Victoria from the PCHA, and they play, and Victoria wins. And the trustees of the Stanley Cup come out afterwards and say, hey, no one asked us, right? This doesn't count for the Cup. And so the Cup goes back to the NHA team in 1914. And the trustees did like the idea. They liked the concept of the 2 leagues competing for it. And so they agreed to sign off to let the winner in 1915 be the winner of the 2 leagues. So.
Man, and again, every sport has them: hockey, baseball, football, basketball, doesn't matter, cricket, right? All these sports just have these amazing origin stories for the trophies they have, the teams that they have. I always love watching those old soccer documentaries and see where those teams came from. And similarly to that, the excitement of the city, what was going on in the city. I know a lot of folks in Seattle are here currently, are hungry for a champion, hungry for a winner. And, when you heard that the NHL was coming to Seattle, the Kraken were coming to Seattle, what were your initial thoughts and your excitement level to see that the Stanley Cup's going to have an opportunity to come back to the Emerald City?
I think just pure excitement, right? I mean, as a kid that grew up here, it was always the kind of hole that we were missing was an NHL team. And, so from just a childhood memory, excited, right? And as someone that had already dove headfirst into Metropolitan's history, I was just ecstatic. It's just, so neat to to shine a light back on these guys, right? I mean, the Kraken coming and competing for Stanley Cups again, all of a sudden, this story that was completely obscure is back in the spotlight, and it's as well deserved as could possibly be, right? History should remember those that are worthy, and Metropolitans are absolutely worthy.
Last question before we wrap this up, Kevin. When you were in your studies and in your travels trying to do research for this book and for this story, what's the most fascinating thing that you learned and found out?
I mean, there was a lot, right? I mean, it's a historically fraught time period. So if you're just looking at what was happening in geopolitically, right? You got the start of World War I. The U.S. is getting pulled into World War I literally day for day as the Metropolitans are trying to close out this this pennant chase. It's the height of the temperance movement in America, right? So you have this really conservative faction wanting to ban alcohol. It's the height of the fight for the 19th Amendment, right? Giving women the right to vote, right? So it's a fascinating time historically. And then on top of that, you have this team, right? This team that comes out of nowhere in some respects, and in some respects there's high expectations, right? So you have 4 of the Metropolitans come from the Toronto team that had won the Stanley Cup in 1914, and 5 of the guys had been players that had been cut from other teams, right? And so, Pete Muldoon is the head coach of the Metropolitans, and he takes these 4 guys that are superstars and he elevates their game, and then he takes these 5 guys that are, disparate parts that are off the scrap heap and coaches them up and really, turns them into stars, right? And it was really fun getting in. Like, he'd take the team to watch the Husky football team play, or he'd take the team to Jefferson Park on Beacon Hill and play golf, right? And he wanted to get them outside of just a hockey competitive arena and get them to really compete, and Bernie Morris is the best scorer on the team, right? So he sets the all-time record for points in the PCHA in 1917. He is from 1915 to 1919 or 1918, excuse me. He's either first or second in points, assists, and goals in the league. Right. And so Muldoon, there's these stories of he'd take tin cans and he'd hang them from the back of the net, and he'd make Morris just pepper pucks off these things. Right. And he'd move them around. And it's just fascinating to learn that, these coaching tactics that we still have today. Right. Obviously, it's not a tin cup anymore, but, these things are starting to come through then. And Muldoon is just an absolute master motivator. Right. Again, he's you consider him the most new school coach, just really personable, really funny, ultra competitive, right? And it's this era of just rampant violence and guys getting, spending half the game in the penalty box and guys getting teeth knocked down, all these things. And there's so many articles about Muldoon talking about we can't do this, right? I can't have my best players off the ice, and win, right? And so he absolutely molds this team together into an absolute fierce team, right? And they play for the cup 3 times, right? So they play in 17, 19, and 20, right? 19, the series is called off because of the Spanish flu pandemic, and the Metropolitans are running away with the series when it happens. The score's tied, but of games, but the Metropolitans have almost doubled the goals for the Canadians, right? In 1919, they have to travel back to Ottawa to play. And back then, Ottawa didn't have artificial ice, right? And so it's a warm spring, and so the ice is melted, right? And the Metropolitans' entire game is speed and athleticism, and all of a sudden they're playing on puddles of ice or of water out on the ice, and it's a slow game and it's a slog. And the Metropolitans lose the first 2 games, and then they just figure out a way to win the 3rd game. They move games 4 and 5 to Toronto because it's artificial ice there. Metropolitans absolutely blitz Ottawa in game 4, and then they're doing I think game 5's tied going into the 5th quarter or 3rd period, excuse me, and 3 guys get injured all at the same time, right? And so then it's all apart. But I mean, you really have this team that just could persevere through anything, could compete on any stage, and it really, it's like I said, it goes back. It absolutely just defines our community and our competitive spirit.
Man, Kevin, I could listen and talk with you all day, man. I love those old stories. We got to let you go, unfortunately, here. But thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And hopefully you'll be writing the book on the first Seattle Kraken Stanley Cup championship.
I'd love to. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Kevin Tyson, author and Seattle sports historian, joining us here on Kraken Coors and the Cup. And I know I teased it a little bit earlier today. we've got a special guest getting set to join us here. So last week, obviously, we had the big announcement of our new head coach, Dave Haxtell. A couple of weeks ago, though, we made another big splash by announcing the newest member of our broadcast team. That is, of course, former NHLer JT Brown, who will be joining John Forsland over on Root Sports. JT, what an honor, what a surprise. Thanks so much for joining us, man. How's it going?
It's going good. I'm happy to be on and, chatting with you.
My first question I have to ask you is just your excitement on joining the Kraken and getting behind the mic for this next chapter of your career.
Oh, definitely excited. The secret's out. It's been a while. We had to hold that one in for a little bit. So it's finally official. No longer, a professional hockey player. It's going to be weird to say, ex or former, retired. But just like the tweet said, I retired and then I came right back out of retirement. So I'm excited for this opportunity and, I'm ready for, what comes next.
I loved the quotes that you had for the announcement of your hiring, saying that I've been doing this for 25 years and now I need to find something else. What has that transition been like for you so far? And what do you anticipate life after hockey, playing hockey, I should say, looking like for you?
Oh, hopefully I'm a TV color analyst for the Seattle Kraken for a very long time. No, again, it's always different. You're starting a new career. I know that there's a lot of work for myself to do, to prepare. I'm not going to be maybe as good as you or Forsland, at the start. But again, I think a lot of it comes with hockey, and that's being prepared and, putting in the work, especially in the off season, so that, come game one, come preseason, I'm comfortable in this position and ready to go.
I want to pull back the curtain a bit because I heard some stories about your audition process with John Forsland over at Root Sports. You did a little screen test with him, and obviously it wasn't ideal because of the pandemic and John's schedule over on the national side. But what was that screen test like? What did you learn about your abilities, and what are you looking forward to most about this opportunity?
I'd be lying to you if I didn't say it. I was nervous. I don't know why, but, it was on the TV, first time kind of doing an interview. I knew there was a big opportunity, but, working with John made it a lot easier. He kind of settled me in, the first few minutes, I was thinking too much, but again, I think it went well. Obviously it went well enough for me to get the job, but again, there were some nerves, which again, that's the preparation, the work that we're going to continue to put in before, opening night. But I'm excited for the opportunity, excited to be a part of the broadcast team. And also on the other side, excited to, just be a part of the community in Seattle.
You and your family are very active in whatever community you're a part of. You and your wife, Lexi, along with your kids. I see you guys all at all the pride marches and all the different festivals and things that go on wherever you live. What are your impressions so far of the city of Seattle? We had the opportunity to meet you and Lexi a few weeks back, and she was saying it was the first time that she'd ever seen mountains in person. So obviously a little bit of a geographical shock when you come here.
Yeah, definitely different. I think both of us fell in love with the city right away. It's definitely special when you fly in and you get to see, the mountains coming in, but then also when you're driving around the city, there's so many different views. That's always awesome, to see. But, we're just excited to kind of, create a home here and settle in. And again, just getting in the community is some things that Lexi and I have continued to do wherever we've been located because of hockey, and, this is no different.
What do the kids think? You've got two young ones. I think one probably is able to grasp a little bit better, but what are they saying about the move to Seattle, potentially, this being their home for quite some time?
Yeah, Booker is 2.5, so he's not quite he doesn't know really what's happening yet, except for maybe that we've moved some of his toys. But Lily does understand that we're moving, and she's okay with it as long as she gets a pink and a room with butterflies. So that is my job, is to, once we get into Seattle, then make sure that at least a wall, I don't know about all of them, but one wall will be pink and have butterflies for her.
I have a feeling it's not going to be too hard to spot the Brown household. Just look for the pink butterfly siding outside, eh?
Hey, whatever keeps her happy. She's 4. I know there's tough ages at all walks through, kids growing up, but she has her good days, her bad days. So if I can alleviate some of those by getting her pink room and the butterflies, I'm happy with that.
We got a couple seconds left, JT. I want to give you an opportunity just to give some first words to the city of Seattle, to the fan base about you coming to town. Any message you want to give our great fans here in the Pacific Northwest?
I'm excited to get into the community, get in to see everybody, and just to really feel a part of Seattle. And from what I know, as far as sports and everything goes in Seattle, there's a very passionate fan base here, and I'm excited to join that.
Man, well said. JT Brown, the new television color analyst for your Seattle Kraken, joining John Forsland on Root Sports this season. JT, thank you so much. Cannot wait to get you here permanently, move you out to Seattle. We'll have to catch up for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me on.
Anytime. JT Brown joining us here on Kraken Coors and the Cup. So earlier in the show, I mentioned we've got a little surprise for you, a little special guests coming up here. Well, it is now toward the end of the show, and I had a lot of fun doing this. We caught up with the first signee ever in Kraken history, Luke Henman, along with NFL tight end, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks, Luke Wilson, for a little game we like to call Luke versus Luke. For our Luke versus Luke trivia competition presented by Coors Light, I am here with NFL tight end Luke Wilson and the first ever player signed by your Seattle Kraken, Luke Henman. Fellas, what's going on?
Not too much. I'm excited to be here. How we doing?
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So we're going to put you guys through a little bit of a trivia contest. Our first round, worth 1 point, will be hockey trivia. Our second round, worth 3 points each question, will be Seattle sports trivia. And our final round, which will be worth 5 points per question, will be famous Lukes. Every answer in that category will be someone named Luke. Person, if you get it right, you get to keep the points. If not, the other Luke has the opportunity to steal the points. At the end, we'll tally it up. Most points wins, just like in any other sport. Let's go. So we're going to get started here, and because we are playing this during the Stanley Cup final, let's have Luke Henman go first. We'll start with our first question in hockey trivia. Luke Henman, true or false? Wayne Gretzky would still be the NHL's all-time leading scorer, even if he never scored a goal.
That's true.
All right, 1 point for Luke Henman. Of course, that is indeed true. Luke Wilson, the NHL franchise that has the most Stanley Cup in league history is?
Come on now. I'm Canadian, man.
Oh, then there's to be no excuse for you to get this question right then.
Montreal Canadiens.
The Montreal Canadiens. It is 1-1. All right, Mr. Henman, you are up. This most recent NHL expansion team has never missed the playoffs.
The Vegas Golden Knights.
Vegas Golden Knights. Ding, ding. Congratulations there. All right, Mr. Wilson, your next question. What is a Gordie Howe hat trick?
Well, again, Fitz, you're asking me softball, so I grew up 10 minutes from Detroit.
Okay.
Let's see what
My hometown is Detroit, so again, you better get this right.
Yeah, I better. I believe it's 1 goal,
okay,
1 assist,
okay,
and 1 fight.
Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. 2-2. So, Luke, I have to ask you, Luke Henman, how many Gordie Howe hat tricks have you had in your career?
Actually, just one. Just one.
Okay.
I have 1 fight in the QMJHL where I played, and I had 2 goals, 2 assists, and a fight that game.
Wow. Did you win the fight?
I don't think so.
Wrong answer. Yes.
I'm not really a fighter, but
Good
I'm
effort.
not really a fighter.
Good effort.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not the biggest guy, but I said to myself, I was like, you know what? I've been in this league for like 5 years. I need to get 1 fight, before I leave. So I got 1, and it wasn't a great fight from him or me, but it happened and it counts. So
that's respect, though.
We got one more question here in our hockey trivia segment, and it is for you, Luke Henman. Who are the original six?
No shot he gets this. No shot.
Okay. Montreal, Toronto, New York Rangers, Boston, Detroit, and what was that? Okay, wait. Montreal, Toronto, Boston, Rangers, Detroit. Oh my God.
We're going to have to cut you off. Luke Wilson, can you steal? Who are the original six?
You want me to rename the 5 you said?
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, you can rename the 5, yeah.
And then I'll rename his 5, but I believe his 6 is Philadelphia.
Oh, come on.
I'm on.
You're
no.
on.
Okay,
Not Philadelphia, so we'll award no points for that one.
Yeah, that's
The Chicago Blackhawks.
Wow,
that was bad.
Boston, Chicago, Detroit, Montreal, the Rangers, and the Leafs.
You might have to edit that out. I'm
never going to hear
that out for both of our sakes.
That was bad.
I got a few minutes.
I only have 4 questions, man. Hey.
We are through one round of Luke versus Luke with Seahawks tight end Luke Wilson and the first ever signed player in Kraken history, Luke Henman. We are tied at 2. We are now moving on to round 2 of Seattle Sports Trivia. All right, so we had Luke Henman start the first round. We'll have you, Luke Wilson, start the second round, okay? The Seattle Metropolitans were the first American team to win this major sports trophy in 1917.
Stanley Cup.
There you go. Good job. All right.
Pause there, Fitz, my bad. I got to give a shout out.
Yeah.
I was at Physio in town, and I got in an argument 2 months ago that didn't actually happen. I'm like, Seattle Metropolitans never won the cup.
What?
I mean, that's what I thought. I never even knew that. So I just want to give a shout out to the youngster intern at the PT shop for getting me right for this trivia thing 2 months later.
That is awesome. All right. So next up, now remember this round is worth 3 points each. So right now, with that answer, you're now up 5-2, Luke Wilson. Luke Henman, this next one on Seattle Sports Trivia is for you. The Seattle Mariners have a baseball legend who is known simply as the Kid. Who is?
Couldn't tell you. Not even the slightest.
No. Bro, you gotta get on your Seattle.
I know. I gotta get on my.
I gotta get on the Seattle. All right, Luke Henman doesn't know the Kid. Luke Wilson, who's the Kid?
Ken Griffey Jr.
Ken Griffey Jr. is correct.
I gotta feel I'm a little older than Luke Henman though. Yeah. So that helps me out.
I'm not a baseball guy either.
That's fair.
All right, so next up, Seattle Sports Trivia. This one's another one. We're gonna come back to you, Luke Henman.
It's me now.
It's you now because Luke Wilson stole it. He stole it. He got it.
Okay.
All right. The Glove is the nickname for this Seattle basketball legend who ranks one of the top 50 NBA players of all time.
Uh-oh. My guy.
Hey, wait, can you repeat the question? The question.
This NBA player, this Seattle basketball legend, is nicknamed The Glove, and he ranks as one of the top 50 NBA players of all time.
I mean, this is just a pure guess, and I don't even know if this makes sense, but I know Kevin Durant was drafted by Seattle, so I'm going to go with Kevin Durant.
Oh, not Kevin Durant. All right, Luke Wilson. The Glove is the nickname for this Seattle basketball legend who ranks as one of the top 50 NBA players of all time.
Gary Payton.
Gary Payton, absolutely. All right, last one. Luke Henman, back to you. I feel like this one should be pretty easy for you to get here.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
All right, our final Seattle Sports Trivia question. This NFL player caused the stadium to register on the Richter scale. The phenomenon has been referred to as the Beastquake. Who was the player to cause the Beastquake?
I actually know this one. I actually know this one. It's Marshawn Lynch, final answer.
Marshawn, exactly. All right, you got 5. Now, Luke Wilson, you played with Marshawn. I mean, what was it like being in that locker room with him? All the passion, all the energy that he brings. I mean, that had to have been one heck of an experience.
Yeah, he was a tremendous teammate and just a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, on the field, what he did was done short of amazing. You know, being able to kind of take the field with him week in, week out was incredible. But just one of the most authentic humans, you know, that I've ever been around. You kind of knew exactly where he stood with Marshawn, and he, you know, treated everybody very similar. You know, I think to a degree, a lot of people, more professional athletes, got to see that authenticity through some interviews. Maybe not the full personality, but that was him, and it was, you know, pretty special taking the field when you had a guy of that talent every Sunday, and obviously we had a lot of success with him running the ball for us.
We'll move on to our next segment. We've got one last category. We'll reset the scores for you. Luke Wilson has got 11. Luke Henman has 5. And I think this next category, anybody's game. Famous Lukes. Every answer in this category is someone named Luke. Now, these questions are also now worth 5 points. So Luke Henman, who sees himself in a 6-point hole, he can make up some ground pretty quick. So we're going to give this first question here to Luke Wilson. This Luke had an epic party known as Mitchapalooza thrown in his honor.
Let's go. I believe that's Luke Wilson.
Yes, that is the other Luke Wilson. Have you ever seen Old School, Luke Henman?
I have not. That's probably a bad one. That's with Will Ferrell, eh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know the scene in the locker. That's the scene in the locker room, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that scene. I've never seen the movie, but I know the movie.
Okay. A little before your time.
Yeah, a little bit.
Luke Henman, bro, I appreciate the you dropped a couple Canadian A's in there.
Yeah, I have a lot of them.
Yeah. When I was 18 and I jumped over to play college ball in Houston, after like the first week, I'd be talking similar to how you are, and the whole team would start laughing at me.
I know.
But now it's kind of out of the vocab. I was, you know, as a youngster, I was worried about the ridiculing. Kind of wish I kept it though.
Even when I talk to like people from Seattle, like whoever it is, like the management and stuff, and I say like, hey, I say that a lot, so I can, you know, some of them have mentioned that.
Don't be like me, man. Stay true and keep it in the boat.
Yeah, I didn't even realize I was doing it. So that's I hope I don't think it'll change, but we'll see.
I feel like once you get around a locker room full of hockey players, it just stays with you.
Yeah, true.
All right, Luke Henman, I think I have a softball for you here. The force was strong with this Luke.
Luke Skywalker.
There we go. All right, 16 to 10. Next one for you. This honky-tonk Luke is known for songs like That's My Kind of Night and Country Girl.
I believe it's Luke Bryan.
Luke Bryan, exactly. There you go. I'm not a huge country guy. Are either one of you country guys?
I am, yeah.
I'm not, but I have been to Nashville a few times.
I'm a country guy. I love country music. Yeah.
Okay. You know what? It's interesting. I've met quite a few hockey players, quite a few Canadians just through my travels who love country music. And I know Calgary's got the big Stampede every single year, but country's big up north.
Yeah, it's pretty big. There's a lot of festivals all around Canada during the summer, like country festivals that a lot of the big stars come to. So there's one in PEI that I go to. I've been there once or twice. So yeah, I'm a big country music guy. So I know it's pretty big up here.
Okay, so we got a 21-10 lead for Luke Wilson. Luke Henman, this next one is for you. This Luke is the head coach of the Sacramento Kings and is the son to NBA Hall of Famer Bill.
Sacramento Kings is probably the one team in the NBA that you don't hear a lot about. So
Yeah.
I got nothing here.
Oh, all right.
He might put it away here.
Luke Wilson, can you steal?
I think I might, yeah.
Okay. Luke Walton, that is it. All right. So Luke Walton is the coach, and I'm laughing because this next one, Luke Henman, I just want to apologize in advance for this next question because I'm pretty sure this relates to a time before you were even a blip on anybody's radar. Our final question of the round, this Luke became a teen idol for his role as Dylan McKay on the 90s TV series Beverly Hills 90210. This Luke became a teen idol for his role as Dylan McKay on the 90s TV series Beverly Hills 90210.
Got nothing. Before my time. That's my excuse.
Before your time, we'll give you that excuse. Luke Wilson, can you steal it?
I can't. No idea.
No idea. That one. I threw that one in there. I had a feeling that was going to trip you guys up. That, of course, is Luke Perry. Luke Perry.
I feel like I actually should have known that.
Yeah. I mean, Luke Henman, I'll give you a pass on that one, but Wilson, I feel like you're a little closer to that.
I feel like I was playing a good game, but because it ended this way, I feel like you're only as good as the last game you played. It's like, put a little salt on my performance today in the trivia.
Well, the original 6-1, that I'm gonna lose sleep over that one tonight. That's inexcusable.
All right, so Luke versus Luke goes the way of Luke. Luke Wilson, that is, as he picked up the victory 26-10. Luke Wilson over Luke Henman. But hey, you know what, Luke Henman? This just means they'll give you plenty of time to brush up on that Seattle sports history, man. This is your hometown. This is your town now.
Oh, I gotta get learning that. I think I actually learned a lot today. So I didn't know about that Gary Payton one. I didn't know about a few of those. So I learned a bit today. So that's all I can take from this. But I got killed.
All right, that's going to do it for Luke versus Luke. Luke Wilson, Luke Henman. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Best of luck this summer and best of luck next season as we hopefully will bring some championships to the Emerald City. Thanks a lot, fellas, for your time.
Appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks for having us, Fitz.
I tell you what, I've had the opportunity to be a part of some pretty cool things since starting this job, and that was definitely up there for one of the more cool experiences that I've had in my time here. That's going to wrap it up for Kraken Coors and the Cup presented by our friends at Coors Light. I want to thank Ryan Clark, Kevin Tyson for joining us, JT Brown for stopping by as well. Of course, Luke Henman and Luke Wilson for making time to join us today. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final goes off here in about 15 or 20 minutes. So in the meantime, I am going to be cracking open a cold one from our friends at Coors Light. Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Get set for Game 2 coming up here in a matter of minutes. Hopefully this time next year, we'll be able to celebrate a Kraken Stanley Cup as well. Thanks so much for watching us. On behalf of Coors Light, everybody at the Seattle Kraken, my name is Everett Fitzhugh. Good night, everyone.